Good morning. I was kind of hoping I could put this on Zoom and link it into Facebook Live today, but it would seem that this is the way that the universe is moving. So I'm going to start here with just lifting my computer a little bit so that I can enjoy what I'm looking at more than be at the effect of it. So I want to do a bit of work today. I have activity of consciousness that I've been part of for some time, and that activity of consciousness that I'm presently in often has quite an effect on my brain. So you're getting to see how the effect of consciousness can affect a human brain. I don't quite know how I'm going to address today. I operate in a system of existence that often is highly unrelatable to the type of dialogue or monologue that human beings have. And when I've been through a week of it, it's hard for me to fade back into the physical circumstantial world and in a it's almost like a shape-shifting phenomenon where there's this meditation we did to prepare us to carry this line of creation. It's called a synchronic line. It's actually these lines that are vertical and squiggly, but mostly go down into the planet, up into the universe. And they're squiggly, and they have a tremendous amount to do with our synchronicity with creation. I never had that terminology, so I just operate with time. But since I learned about the synchronic lines, and there's an understanding about them and a wisdom about them and an operation about them, I can tell that it's the synchronic lines that I had a direct relationship with forever. And that this ability to move with the so above, so below time of creation really came from this synchronicity of consciousness. I call it synchronic timing. I always found linear timing very strange. People trying to force a to-do list into their life as if the to-do list had something to do with time, not their direct relationship with existence itself. And I do remember, I think I was in my 40s, I do remember when I had to beef up about it. I had to trust it in the face of how I've been trained to operate as an everyday human being. And I still remember it. So I understand the challenge of trusting that things will fall into place in a synchronistic manner simply by you doing what we talk about fundamentally in the creation exercises and in the LOC Institute. Simply by improving the consciousness you carry so that you have a real capacity to know what's yours to do and to know what's not yours to do. And it's quite satisfying because when you know what's not yours to do, when you know what's yours to do, things fall into place. They almost come out of nothing. I do think they come out of nothing. But they fall into place in a much more organic, natural way. It's harder when you're operating in organizations or systems that demand allegiance to linear to-do time. So it often makes people self-generating and self-sustaining and almost like a sovereign nature rises, where you dictate your time. And time is, as human beings have imposed upon themselves, no longer dictates you. So it's an amazing thing to actually go with a group of people to Grand Lake in Colorado, and even that was very much distinct for me. I think there were 2 other places that had been chosen to hook the line, and those were not mine to do. And they would have brought the line down to me in Albuquerque, New Mexico, to hook it to my sphere. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, just drop me a note and I'll make sure while I'm in Costa Rica, I leave the 18th of November, and I will be doing Facebook Live on Friday, same time. And I'll write it out for you. I'll explain it to you. Maybe we'll post it here on Sacred Space. But human beings, for a long time before now, actually had a direct link with creation and the powers and forces of creation. It's what had them heal. The human body and the human mind and the human emotions are very vulnerable. And if we weren't part of the spark of creation, if we weren't part of the vibrational field of creation, I'm pretty sure we'd be extinct before now. And maybe a lot of this form has gone extinct. And maybe there was something compatible about this form, not this personal form, but the form of human being. Maybe there was something compatible about the form of human being for the generating, organizing designs of creation, the greater systems of consciousness, to merge with, to become part of, to experience another expression of existence, which is really the accurate way to exist. This thing called personality with a history that human beings have become so absorbed in is actually not real. It's like reading one book and thinking it's all books, listening to one song and thinking it's the whole song. So the very strength, stomach capacity to move out beyond one's personal self, personal identity is more accurate, and to be able to merge and be part of the greater systems of reality, whether it's a tree or which is longer lived than you, a rock longer life than you, a bee shorter lived than you, flower, the moon, the cosmos, the earth herself, is actually the wonder and delight of being a being. Going into the workplace and merging with the desk and the phone or the internet, the vibrational field of the internet. This is actually the consciousness of a human being. This personal story and this personal assessment of one's condition is very all-consuming. but it isn't real. It's like getting stuck in a movie and thinking the movie's real. The only thing that's ever really real is connection. Connection's the only thing that's ever really real. So we're at a period of time where the fundamental aberration of personality that human being has become incarcerated by is dissolving. I think it's going to be a difficult time. I think it might be important to be with groups of people who don't really care who you are or what you hold yourself to be, only care that they're connected to you and that you're connected to them. That you dwell in the same realm of existence together. But I do think it's going to be hard. In I Magi, which is, I think, the 17th of November. And for those of you that aren't participating in it, if you do want to take advantage of it, I recommend you register in it and come participate, and I'll say why. Because it's all about my job. My job is to take care of the evolving consciousness of a human being, and to do it in a way that the personality structure can dissolve and restructure itself into its next greater whole. No getting rid of the ego, simply evolving it. But these periods of time where these morphic activities are going on, a human being doesn't realize how much they count on the storyline in their head. It doesn't really matter if it's positive or negative. It sustains them falsely and inaccurately. But it's been like a life raft in a choppy sea that had no access to self, the greater systems of consciousness of which you're a part and of which you are until now. So in I Magi and also in I Guardian at the Gate, but it's not open to the public. In I Magi, we'll see how far we can go. It's a particular, because I Magi relates to magic, real magic. Real magic is you, in case you didn't know. We'll just see how far we can go to untangle certain fixed ways of being. Fixated ways of being is more accurate. That live in the human mechanism of thinking and speaking. Because this is Facebook Live and because it's in the space of safe and sacred, a safe and sacred space for rest and courage. This would fall under courage. In other words, you are alone with yourself here. You'll probably be alone with yourself. I just think it's easier to be alone with yourself with others that love and care about you than to be alone with yourself with others that do not even care about you or need you to be the way they have fixated you in their story. But I began to notice I think one of the ways people are talking about it is the vibrational systems of the planet are rising or increasing not only their higher vibration, but it's a higher oscillating rate. For instance, if you're driving the car meandering on a Sunday afternoon down an old rural road with nobody driving on it, you can take all the time in the world to put on the brake, to speed up, to watch the scenery. But if you're on a racetrack, that same kind of conditioning is dangerous. Simply dangerous. So I wrote, you can go to my website, or I think I posted on my home screen, although it's always hard to scroll down on Facebook. But if you go to tantramud.com and you go to the bottom of the page, there's 2 separate posts I wrote, trying to move really slow, trying to kind of eke my way into the darkness in human consciousness, not the darkness of human consciousness. Trying to eke my way into that darkness and see if we can't disrupt something that is very much of the faculty of consciousness that many human beings, maybe most human beings, operate in. It's more than likely why they started this activity of positive thinking. The problem with positive thinking is it has to be positive contrasted to not positive or negative. So you're in the either or, and even if you're thinking something positive, you're simply trying to do something that's not negative. And so everything just persists. But when you're in your direct relationship with creation, you're listening with creation and moving with creation on behalf of all life. You could say even your own, in case that sounds too generalized. And to move only with your own life is quite sufficient, because every thread that straightens out and moves into synchronic patterning again affects other threads' ability to straighten out and move into synchronic patterning again. Synchronic patterning is what lets us not operate in constant considerations, yeah, buts. Because you're seeing something. It's why the observing being exercises in the Creation Institute are so important, because this way you can move along the thread, seeing what's occurring, observing what's occurring, and moving on. So observing whatever you're observing, as you be observing something, has you be present to what you're observing. And when you're present to what you're observing, something starts to open up, a synchronic pattern actually. And as that pattern opens up, you begin to have a distinct experience of movement or being there, independent of the chorus line of the world you were born into. What concerns me is one I don't think anyone has ever escaped, that they think their thinking is them. They don't live swimming in an ocean of thinking where they can swim away from certain thought fish and they can search for other thought fish that serve them more effectively, serve themselves, serve the self of themselves, the greater system of consciousness of which you are a part. And I always know when we're moving in these aberrated waters because I feel it. The thought forms that deplete me energetically, the thought forms that wear out my body, the thought forms that elicit a storyline that has accrued through this temporal plane, all get stronger. But for me, I just know they're getting stronger, which means they're latched on, like parasitically, and it'll just be a minute before they can't hold on with the strength of connection that I generate. Because if I don't connect to them, they have no connection with me. But I'm not different. I don't walk around with this mindset that is always rosy and always operating pristinely in the beauty and wonder of life. I know what the next 6 years are about. I know they're sobering. I know we have at least 3 things against us that there may be more. I know that human beings still identify with their thought patterns as a description of their self. It's not their self. Their self is what makes us do things that our self is what has us reach for self-expression. Our self is what has us look for connection, reach for connection. It's always there. It's always operative. It always even interrupts the thought patterns of negativity and self-defacement and historic reinforcement. We still find ourselves going to a party. We still find ourselves watching cool TV. We still watch ourselves laughing with our friends. So this idea that the thinking in our head is where we source life from is pretty ridiculous. It does, however, put the brakes on self-expression, physical well-being, and if the vibration is oscillating in a higher frequency, which I think it is. Look, it was no accident that Albuquerque got included with the connection to the synchronic lines in Colorado. It was going to happen in California. And it's no accident that once this synchronic line was connected to Spheri here, that I gave these amazing boots to Liz Geyer to take to her place in Walnut Creek, a place that is out of the way of any major city, to have her sphere be connected there. There's no accident. Synchronic lines go where they can move energy, which is information. Energy is informing your energy field when it is independent of assessment, and it is independent of the assessment. That means deciding what's going on, independent of figuring out what to do, and independent of assessment, figuring out what to do. I'm going to scroll down to the comments, see if anybody knows anything else. Just gonna there's one other, but I can't think of it. Oh, I know, reinforcing. I don't know. There's at least one other, but I can't think of it. I didn't see anything on the comments. But the point is, when we don't listen to our our identity assessments, when we don't listen to trying to figure something out, and we don't listen to having to get everything done, we have much stronger energy. high vibrational field is cleaner. I don't know how to say it, and cleaner, and I know we say pure, but then that becomes more moral and ethical, and it's not pure. It's just there's less flack, and when there's less flack, you are an attraction. You are attracted by creation. It is attracted to you, deeply, profoundly attracted to you, not as a person, but as a point of light, as a movement of creation. Template 6 in the creation exercises. So the field of Tantra Mat, built for 7 years, is still pulsing. And then those of you that have come to join us since then, you carry that pulse. Otherwise you wouldn't, not the pulse of the thing, but the pulse of the consciousness of creation that goes beyond our human ability to understand what that is. But it creates us as attractive. And attraction, being attractive, means that you carry an interesting activity of light. You carry a frequency base that is like a communication system of informing, information, that is always information. It's always information. That's why reinforcing the past and assessing oneself according to your thoughts is information. It butts up against the greater systems of you that are busy forming. But creation doesn't know that. Creation doesn't know that you're in a holocaust of your own thought forms. It's busy interacting with you so that you and creation can keep forming. Some of the saddest things I've ever seen is people that are healers, that are remarkable healers, shocking. And they die with self-assessments that are horrific. The worst one was Janie, who died saying, I should have been able to heal myself. And yet the work she did and the miracles she generated, her sense of self never got to enjoy those. Never got to appreciate those. There was always something else, some criteria. That's another one of those horrors of the present incarceration of the human mind. Is there's always some unknown qualification for existence you have to meet. So I'm going to tell you my concern, and the truth is that I don't know, it might not really be a concern, but I come at things as a concern just in case. And that is that, number one, we need to be able to move through depressions and excitements, by the way, and not have them be markers of life's okay or life's not okay, but to let the system riv, to let the system reset itself over and over and over and over again, constantly forming. And we're in a new regulating, we're in a new, it's like something re-regulating so that our bodies, our minds, and our emotions can be connected into something that we haven't had the registers for up until now. I think that's close enough for now. I'll get into it more in I Magi, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to be with you today and to at least approach the topic. But the hardest thing is the dysfunction of personality when it begins to flummox. That's hard, because everything that held it together starts to chat louder. In other words, your thoughts formed your personality. In case I am not clear. And then the personality is like an instrument. It's like a matrix, but it's like an instrument that plays. Because it's constructed by strings, aberrational strings that play like a robot. So it's really important during these times, to constantly go to self-care, being with oneself with great appreciation and kindness. Great appreciation and kindness. It got you to here. The ability to take things slowly. You should see my room. It's a holocaust of... You all saw it pristine if you were able to get on the see the sphere hooked up. But now it's got a bed full of winter clothes to figure out which ones, because I now have a lot of clothes that I look a little baggy in. And I don't like them anymore. They don't fit a new sense of self, and yet that new sense of self doesn't seem to have a clothing understanding yet. I have 3 outfits. Maybe I'll even wear one of them next week that I'm taking to Costa Rica. But all that's fun, to be in forming is fun and hard. And I would bet $1 million that every one of you on this call, on this time together, is in that activity of forming. And it's fine to reinforce the things that give you life and have you exist as whole. I just want to make sure you can make room for something that you've never experienced before, that operates on behalf of life and has you exist as whole, that you're not trying to find it. Remember, finding is another one of those chase your tail things. But to be able to really take it easy and make space for something you've never experienced before. And it might not just be a thing, it might be a quality of life. It might just be a quality. More than likely it is a quality. More than likely. So I'm just going to take a minute for y'all to write questions or in the chat. I have to scroll down. I'm not sure when I scroll down. I finally found the comments. I'm not sure when I scroll down if you... oh, there you are. Now I see you. Yeah, Linda, that's really true. Neither do I. It's one reason I'm stumbling through this conversation. It's one reason I wrote the 2 posts, because it forces me to articulate sloppily, really. But if you don't listen to your listening as you're speaking, this is really critical, what Linda said, and you don't take the phenomenon of that listening. Oh, Loopy made me cry. I'm here because I love humanity and I love being a human. And everything I do is to get us back. We'll leave this form soon enough. And we don't know what our next form will be. We don't know where we're going. But energy doesn't die, so we have to be going somewhere and doing something. And if I never get to be this again, I want to make sure this species got its chance. Because something terrible happened to this species. And it mustn't ever happen again. It just mustn't. But I want to tell you what brought the tears. So Spheri, my little Spheri, I haven't decided whether I can show her image or not. She and I haven't decided. It's okay with Dom and her, but I could here in this space. This space is only, I have to approve everyone that participates in this space. I did that on purpose because I wanted to be with people that were reverent and needed a sacred space for rest and courage in between their walking out and saying, here I am. I'm going to keep going. But the night before we hooked up the synchronic lines, and do let me know or let Praline know if you're on WhatsApp, or write the office at tantramat.com, and I will take time in Costa Rica to write it out, maybe only for this group. But I will write it out. I just said when I'm busy doing what's mine to do, I don't often take time to report in. I'm always busy. But the morning that we were to go, 12 of us, part of us from Colorado, 4 of us from around the country, to hook into the major synchronic line, I had a dream. It wasn't really a dream. I had a visitation, or I was somewhere. And I remember the impact of the beginning of it, because I was so never wanted to come out of the dream. It was so, I don't know, as you said, Linda, I don't have articulation. It was just so perfect. And it was actually 2 friends of mine that I'll be talking to Saturday night. I want to tell them the dream personally. And but in the dream, there were all these scenarios. Some of them were human, some of them weren't. I was pretty sure it was some of the beings that we met in what we call the Mimsy Project. The Mimsys aren't a single species. I could have sworn I saw at least 1,000 faces in the sky in 2009. And it would seem there's an interactive relationship now, the more the connection, the synchronic lines happen. And really, honestly, if you just practice synchronicity, you are hooked into the lines. That's, 1 plus 1 does equal 2 here. 1 is always 1 here, both and. But it was so extraordinary to see the quality of existence that these species existed in. And I remembered a former visitation, astral travel event I'd had many years before, where I'd been invited to participate, where they were practicing to come into the planet. And they were all sorts of different species, and they were working really hard not to harm each other, because one was gas and one was pointy and one was flesh. But there was no record in their consciousness of war or hate or aberration or destruction or anything like that. And I was really embarrassed that they invited me, that they brought me there. And I couldn't for the life of get it out of my head. If there was peace, then there had to be war. If there was love, then there had to be hate. And oh my God, it was so embarrassing. But over the next months, as those of you that were around me during that time, I managed to lose that contrast. I just could feel there was peace that was non-dual. And I could feel there was love that was non-dual. And I could feel there was excitement and just taking care of each other in a way we didn't puncture each other. If I was flesh and it was pointed, what if that was our only concern? In fact, one of my monad groups is trying to work that out right now. It's beautiful to watch that kind of thing happen. How do we stay related? And some of us are pointy and some of us are gaseous and some of us are tender and some of us are weird. And how do we just learn each other in a way that we can operate in a coherency, a cohesion? But then fast forward to this dream. So I went through this for a while, and I was very emotional in a non-emotional way, like you are in dreams. And I just kept saying, please, please, I don't want to wake up without this. What is it? I kept saying, what is it? And then this kind of chorus of voice, many more than one voice. It's sort of like when they gave us a date for the beginning of the Mimsy Project. It's like you can tell they'd worked really hard to get a single statement out, like that Arrival movie. And they said, it's the new element of human being. It's the rising element in human being. Intimacy. And that was what came to me before we went to hook the line. And obviously, there's an element of that now in our time together here. And it goes beyond what we probably presently know. But you know, Vanessa, that's the deal. The deal right now is, I even had a conversation with a client yesterday during a reading, just creating a distinction. I don't need to tell people what to do anymore, or advise them. Just get the mind able to distinguish things it hasn't had the articulation for before. And what she became really clear about was that her response was could look like trauma recovery, but it wasn't. It really was the activity of embodiment. So we are really in an activity of embodiment, and it can have a lot of the same impressions. You know, it can have an impression of fatigue. It can, like a person that texted me this morning, you can tell her persona is dissolving, and there's a freneticness to that dissolving that's bringing up a depression and bringing up a sense of lostness. But it really isn't trauma recovery. It really isn't based on trauma. It's based on needing to leave the trauma behind at an energetic level, and not the person needing to leave the trauma behind, the body needing to leave the trauma behind. I'm going through the same thing. I think I bought 3 pounds of nuts. By the way, I never eat nuts. They destroy my intestinal lining. But I bought 3 pounds of nuts when I came back from the work I'd done, because I've been in this space between worlds, which is what you all are getting today. I'm not all the way back. And so you're seeing me hanging out somewhere between having a physical body and not having a physical body. And my brain is like that incredible gold webbing. It won't leave. It hasn't dissolved back into human territory yet. And but I love it. It's just a little cumbersome because I can't quite. Part of my brain function is just busy, like in a permanent state of meditation at the moment. But I could tell that I'm dissolving. And so I basically probably, I don't know, I ate a huge amount of nuts every day. So I got in the scale this morning at night usually, just so I could get in my body enough to sleep. It wasn't like trauma though. It was like shaman actually gorge. They gorge so that they can re-embody, or so the body can stay heavy weighted, so that they can astral travel. So I've been in something like that. So I thought this morning, okay, I'm going to the gym today. I got to get on the scale, see what I did to my body. And I'd lost 2.2 pounds. And it's this phenomenon of the transmutation of our physical form, and that's perfect, that re-regulating that our system is going through. And we will shift our sense of self. We will shift our sense of identity. We will. I'm really moved and deeply touched, especially this Moneta group that's willing to work something through from a different base of distinctions, a different base of consciousness that isn't human-centric. But what happens when you as a field being a field, become operative? How do you distinguish it? How do you gain language, not only for yourself, but for what's occurring and what the interrelated, interactive, symbiotic patterns are among us, so that while we're in the process of becoming literally more. So I want to thank you all for the conversation today. I honestly didn't know what I was going to say, and actually it's kind of cool. I feel back in my body a lot better than I did when this started, and we want to be in the body, but we also want to be able to be out of body too. We want to be able to move between our energetic fields that don't require a body and are lovely, beautiful ways of being human that do require a body. So I'm going to go through the comments again. I'm completing. So if there's any topic or anything anyone wants to put on there to continue, we'll just take a minute to look and see. Yeah, whatever we thought was real isn't real in what's happening now. We're in a new real, and we're in its discovery. All right, you all. When I say it's been real, it has been. Hope to see you on the other side.